Hello, detective fiction students, and welcome to week 5. This week we're going to be changing gears, and instead of working on the whodunit genre, which we've been really focusing on for the most of the first part of class, with 19th century fiction showing up there as well, but a lot of that's also very whodunit style. We are moving into looking at hard-boiled detective fiction and film noir. Those are connected. Typically, hard-boiled detective fiction refers to the written stuff, and the film stuff is, well, not surprisingly, film noir. We're going to be reading a couple of different short stories and then a number of theoretical pieces this week. They're all shorter pieces for the reading because we have a number of viewings. You are going to be reading Dashiell Hammett's The Second Story Angel and They Can Only Hang You Once, Raymond Chandler's The Simple Art of Murder, which is actually written by Raymond Chandler. Not surprisingly, that's why it's called Raymond Chandler's Simple Art of Murder. But that's an interesting thing because he's writing theoretically about the genre, particularly analyzing Dashiell Hammett. It's not one of his fictional works, though he is also very prolific writing hard-boiled detective fiction himself. We have Charles Rebska's Chapter 6, Hard-Boiled Detection, which is going to give us a fantastic groundwork for the type of reading that we're doing and viewing as well, to get us a nice sense of what does this genre look like, how do we understand this subgenre of detective fiction. One word of warning, it does contain spoilers, so do make sure to watch The Maltese Falcon before you read that. And he's talking predominantly about The Maltese Falcon, the novel, which is written by Hammett as well, but we're not reading it, we are watching it to get a sense of what happens when it goes to film. Finally, we have Michel Foucault, an important critical theorist, writing Discipline and Punish. So we just have an excerpt from that, and that's on the concept of panopticism and the panopticon. This is one of our densest and most difficult readings for the class, so you do want to make sure that you devote plenty of time to that. It's going to take you more than typical time for reading. I also recommend, and I will scroll down and show you, fantastic, I've actually already got it there. So if you go to our lecture for this week, which is Film Noir and Hard-Boiled Detective Fiction, the last section of this interactive lecture is on Discipline and Punish. So you can simply click to there, watch through that portion, and then return to the reading if you're finding it very difficult and you need some help getting through it. We're also going to be having some viewing. As always, these are due day 7, and you're going to be looking at The Maltese Falcon. We'll also be watching Castle, Season 1, Episode 1, Flowers for Your Grave. And this is actually really timed well because Castle has just launched its newest season. The last 2 things we're going to be working on, well, 3 things, I guess. We have one that's working ahead on it. You're going to be viewing and participating in the lectures with embedded discussion. There's a presentation on popular detective fiction. I mentioned this earlier in the class, and this is a really exciting one because it means you're going to get to decide what it is you want to be studying that isn't included in our class reading. So you can't work on any of the class readings or viewings, but you can work on anything else that's detective fiction. You're also going to be beginning research for Essay 2, which is just around the corner. So let's look at all of this. You can see the PDFs for the readings are here, 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 and here. The viewings, you can do a number of different places. I've provided you with links to Amazon, which is a great place to rent these. But if you have them on DVD, that's fantastic. If you'd like to check out Netflix, that's wonderful too. iTunes is another place you can get this, and there are endless possibilities. For week 5, I skipped over that when I looked up there, but we do have a reading and viewing quiz, so it's multiple choice and short answer questions. Make sure to complete that. There's an interactive lecture, as I mentioned, for week 5, and you're just going to say finished once you are done with that. The presentation on popular detective fiction is one I'm going to cover briefly in another video, so do look for that. And I want to say just a couple things about it. There are 2 different tracks, either detective and villain or knowledge production, and I modeled both of those for you in this example, which is tied to the Castle episode we are watching, Flowers for Your Grave. The presentations are going to be uploaded here to this discussion board, and you're going to start in on the literary analysis. I've given you a link to our journal that contains the invention writing. None of that's going to be due until next week, but it's a great idea to get a start on that. And we're also going to be looking ahead. Week 7 is when the literary analysis essay, it's a 7 to 9 page research-based literary analysis, is due, and I have provided you here with an overview that's going to walk you through each and every single one of these prompts. There are 7 different directions that you can head, and the last one I'll say just a word about here is one where if you don't see anything that really strikes your fancy, or there's some other idea you wanted to explore related to detective fiction, you can go your own way. You do need to make sure that you are tying this to one of the texts that we have studied in class, but you're welcome to include other texts as well. If you do decide to go your own way, do make sure to let me know about that so I can direct you and let you know if that's a direction that's going to really work well for you. And that should be by the beginning of next week, week 6. I've also provided you with a number of additional resources, and this is just to give you a really broad list of some of the things that you can be using. So I have a playlist here that, there we go. A playlist here that'll give you a 3-part lecture on literary analysis if you're struggling with that at all or want to refresh your understanding of close reading. And then also I have a research guide. So there's a research guide part 1, Google Scholar, I look at the MLA bibliography, and all of these are tailored to detective fiction. I've also put together a playlist that covers how to conduct research in literature, so you can find that right here. This has an introduction, research in literature, looking at library research, and this is not as specific to detective fiction, it's one I've just recently put together. There's also one on annotated bibliographies as a tool. I'm not requiring an annotated bibliography, though I do require a bibliography, and this is a really great one for that distinction between primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. I finally end with working with sources, and I give you a number of fantastic links. If you are using this portion and not this portion, do make sure I want to highlight Literature Criticism Online and Literature Online. These are 2 resources that I cover in the second set of videos, but not in the first. As always, if you have any questions, just let me know.